In the ancient land of Attica, where the mountains kissed the sea and the gods still whispered through the olive trees, a legend was born. His name would echo through the ages: Theseus, son of Aegeus, king of Athens, and destined to become one of the greatest heroes of Greek mythology. But his story did not begin in splendor. It began with a secret. Before Theseus's birth, King Aegeus of Athens was tormented by despair. Though he ruled a vast and prosperous kingdom, he had no heir. The Oracle of Delphi gave him a cryptic message: "Do not loosen the wineskin's mouth until you return to Athens." Confused but obedient, Aegeus journeyed to the southern city of Troezen, where he found hospitality in King Pythias's court. Pythias, wise and cunning, understood the oracle's riddle at once. That night he arranged for Aegeus to lie with his daughter, Aethra. Yet, guided by divine will, Aethra crossed the sea to the island of Spharia, where the god Poseidon visited her in a mist of moonlight. Thus, Theseus was conceived, born of both mortal king and sea god, carrying the dual heritage of man and deity. When Aegeus departed, he left his sword and sandals beneath a great boulder, instructing Aethra that if her son could lift it when he came of age, he should claim them and travel to Athens to be recognized. Years passed, and Theseus grew in strength and wisdom. His presence was commanding even as a youth, his eyes clear and determined, his spirit fierce yet just. The people of Troezen whispered that there was something divine about him, that when he walked among the olive groves, even the wind seemed to bend in respect. When the day came, he approached the boulder that had guarded his destiny. With a deep breath, he placed his hands upon the cold stone. The earth trembled, muscles strained, dust rose, and with a single mighty effort he heaved the rock aside. Beneath it gleamed his father's sword, the symbol of his lineage. He took it in hand and knew his journey had begun. Rather than sail the safe route to Athens, Theseus chose the dangerous road by land, filled with bandits and monsters. He wished to prove his worth, not through birthright, but through valor. Along the way, he encountered 6 great challenges, each a test of his courage and justice. Periphetes, the club-bearer. On the road to Epidaurus, Theseus encountered Periphetes, a monstrous brigand who slew travelers with a heavy bronze club. The son of Hephaestus, the man believed himself invincible, proud of his brute strength. But Theseus faced him without fear, shattered his skull with his own weapon, and made the club his emblem. Sinis, the pine bender. Further along the Isthmian road lived Sinis, a cruel giant who bound travelers to 2 pine trees, bent them down, and released them, tearing his victims apart. Clever and cunning, Theseus pretended to admire his method and persuaded him to demonstrate it. When Sinis bent the trees, the hero bound him instead, and left him to perish by his own device. The Crommyonian Sow. Near the village of Crommion, a monstrous sow born of Typhon and Echidna spread terror, ravaging fields and devouring the inhabitants. The peasants lived in fear, imploring the gods for deliverance. Theseus hunted the beast to its lair and, after a fierce struggle, slew it, restoring peace to the land. Siren, the cliff robber. Along the rugged coast of Megara, Siren forced travelers to wash his feet, only to kick them from the cliffs to be devoured by a giant sea turtle below. Theseus obeyed calmly, waiting for the perfect moment. With a swift motion, he seized the bandit and hurled him into the abyss, condemning him to the fate he had given others. Cercyon, the wrestler of Eleusis. Near Eleusis, Cercyon challenged every passerby to a wrestling match to the death, never sparing a single opponent. Theseus accepted the challenge but relied not on brute force, instead using skill and strategy. With a deft movement, he threw the giant to the ground and crushed him, proving that intelligence surpasses raw strength. Procrustes, the iron-bed executioner. At the gates of Athens lived Procrustes, a false host who invited travelers to rest upon a bed of iron. If they were too tall, he cut them down. If too short, he stretched them until they died. Theseus uncovered the horror of his crimes and resolved to punish him in kind. He laid Procrustes upon his own bed and made him suffer the very fate he had inflicted upon his victims. Each encounter was more than a test of strength. It was a reflection of the evils that plague the human heart: cruelty, greed, arrogance, and corruption. By cleansing the road to Athens, Theseus did more than prove himself. He restored justice to the land. By the time he reached the city, tales of his deeds had spread like wildfire. Yet destiny is rarely so kind as to grant immediate glory. King Aegeus, unaware that this young man was his son, had remarried Medea, the sorceress of Colchis, known for her cunning and dark arts. Seeing Theseus as a threat, she plotted his death. She prepared a cup of poisoned wine, intending to end his life before Aegeus could suspect the truth. But as Theseus raised the cup to his lips, Aegeus saw the sword at his side, his own sword gleaming with destiny. In an instant of recognition, the cup fell, and the king embraced his son. Athens rejoiced, for the heir had returned. Medea fled in fury, her schemes undone by fate itself. Yet peace would not last long, for across the sea on the island of Crete ruled King Minos, a mighty ruler favored by Poseidon. Long ago, Minos had asked the sea god to send him a divine bull as a sign of his right to reign. Poseidon granted his wish, but when Minos refused to sacrifice the bull in gratitude, the god's vengeance took form. His wife, Queen Pasiphae, was cursed with unnatural desire. From that union between mortal and beast, the Minotaur was born, a creature half man, half bull, a monstrous symbol of divine wrath. Minos, horrified yet unwilling to kill the creature, ordered the great inventor Daedalus to build a prison worthy of its terror, the Labyrinth. Its twisting corridors were said to have no end, a maze so intricate that none who entered could find their way out. The labyrinth became more than a prison. It became a mirror of the human soul, a place where fear and fate intertwined. Years later, Athens found itself bound to Crete by a dark pact. After a bitter war, the gods decreed that every 9 years, the Athenians must send 7 young men and 7 maidens as tribute, food for the Minotaur. As the third tribute approached, despair hung over Athens like a storm. Families wept in the streets, mothers clutched their children, praying to Athena for mercy. The sound of mourning filled the air like a funeral hymn. When Theseus heard of it, his heart burned with resolve. He could not bear to see his people suffer, nor his city live in shame. He declared before his father and the court that he would go to Crete as one of the chosen, not as a victim, but as a liberator. He would slay the Minotaur and end the cycle of fear. Aegeus wept and begged him not to go, but Theseus was unyielding. Before he left, the king handed him a black sail and a white one. "If you return victorious," he said, "raise the white sail. If not, the black will tell me all I need to know." The ship departed under dark clouds, carrying Athens' hope upon its decks. The sea journey to Crete was long and perilous. The winds howled, the waves crashed, and the black sail billowed like a shadow of fate. Yet Theseus stood tall upon the prow, eyes fixed upon the horizon, unmoved by fear or storm. The crew, once trembling, drew courage from his calm. They began to believe, truly believe, that one man might stand against destiny. When they reached Crete, King Minos greeted them with cold authority. The tributes were led through the shining halls of his palace, where gold and ivory glimmered like sunlight on water. Among those who watched was his daughter, Princess Ariadne, young, radiant, and wise beyond her years. When her gaze met Theseus's, time seemed to falter. She saw in him not a doomed prisoner, but a spark of something divine: courage, destiny, rebellion against fate itself. That night, Ariadne sought out Theseus in secret. Her heart raced as she confessed her love and offered him aid. She gave him two gifts: a sword, sharp enough to pierce the beast's hide, and a ball of thread to mark his path through the labyrinth. "Find your way back to me," she whispered, "and take me from this island of shadows." Dawn broke over Crete, and the tributes were led into the labyrinth. The air grew heavy, thick with the stench of damp stone and ancient fear. Darkness swallowed the light. Theseus tied one end of the thread at the entrance and advanced into the maze. Each step echoed like a heartbeat. The walls seemed alive, shifting, breathing. The air trembled with distant roars, the Minotaur's breath like thunder trapped underground. Hours passed, sweat dripped from his brow. The cries of his companions faded one by one, swallowed by the darkness. Then, silence. From the shadows emerged the creature. Its body was massive, human, yet twisted. Its head, the head of a bull, glared with eyes burning with hatred and sorrow. The Minotaur roared, a sound that shook the labyrinth itself. Theseus raised his sword. The battle began. They clashed like gods. Each blow echoed through the corridors, steel against horn, muscle against fury. The Minotaur's strength was immense. Each strike could shatter stone. Yet Theseus was swift, guided by purpose and love. At last he feigned weakness, drawing the beast closer. As the Minotaur charged, Theseus sidestepped, driving his blade deep into its heart. The roar that followed was deafening, then faded into silence. The monster collapsed, its great form trembling, then still. For a moment, Theseus stood over it, chest heaving, surrounded by the stillness of victory and the weight of tragedy. The creature had been born of divine punishment, not choice, a victim of the gods as much as of man. But the curse was ended. Following the thread, Theseus led the survivors out of the labyrinth. Ariadne awaited him at dawn, her eyes shining with hope. Together they fled Crete, sailing into the open sea toward freedom. As the island faded behind them, Ariadne dreamed of a new life beside her hero. But fate is a cruel sculptor. On the island of Naxos, as she slept beneath the stars, Theseus was visited by the god Dionysus, who claimed Ariadne as his destined bride. Torn between love and divine will, Theseus departed in silence, leaving her behind. When Ariadne awoke, the sea was empty, and her tears mingled with the waves. Yet in time she became immortal, crowned among the stars as the bride of a god. Theseus's ship sailed homeward, but in his sorrow and exhaustion, he forgot his father's command. The white sail was never raised. From the cliffs of Athens, Aegeus watched the horizon. When he saw the black sail, his heart broke. Believing his son dead, he cast himself into the sea, which has since borne his name, the Aegean. When Theseus arrived, triumphant yet unaware, he found the city draped in mourning. The weight of his father's death crushed his joy. He was hailed as a hero, yet within him grew the somber understanding that every victory comes with loss. Thus, the tale of Theseus and the Minotaur is not merely one of bravery and triumph, but of fate, sacrifice, and the eternal tension between human will and divine decree. Even today, the labyrinth endures as a symbol of the human mind, of the paths we must walk to confront the beasts within ourselves, and of the threads that guide us back from darkness. For every heart that wanders into the unknown, there waits a choice, a thread, and a test. and through courage, as Theseus taught, we may yet find our way back to the light.